Mesdames, Messieurs, alors je suis Simon Langlois, je suis le professeur à l'Université Laval et nouveau président de l'Académie des sciences sociales depuis quelques heures. Alors, bienvenue à cette réception où seront accueillis et intronisés des nouveaux membres de l'Académie des sciences sociales. Alors, this is the largest turnout we have had for this event, and we are pleased that so many of you can be here. This event has been made possible through an old friendship. Okay. Is it good? And now, could you? Okay. So this event has been made possible through an old friendship. This friendship, which has been gaining strength for many years, is with the University of Calgary, which is this weekend presenting sponsor. Prior to beginning the scholarly program this afternoon, I would like to invite the Associate Vice President Research of the University of Calgary, Madame Anne Katzenberg, herself a Fellow of the Academy of Social Sciences, to bring greetings on behalf of the University of Calgary. Anne?
Thank you, Simon. On behalf of the University of Calgary and our president, Elizabeth Cannon, I bring greetings to you and welcome to the Academy of Social Science New Fellows presentation here at the Banfoy Mountain Lodge. It's good to see many friends and colleagues here today. The University of Calgary is a strong supporter of the Royal Society of Canada, and we're proud to be a presenting sponsor of this year's AGM, along with the Government of Alberta and the Ministry of Enterprise and Advanced Education. We're very pleased that the Royal Society chose Banff as the first destination of the AGM on the road, and we're even more delighted to have received an invitation to serve as presenting sponsor this weekend. I'd like to welcome fellows and award winners from universities across the country. I'd like to offer congratulations to each of you for the excellence that you represent. Welcome too to interested members of the public joining us today. As a member of the Academy of Social Sciences, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the 2013 New Fellows presentation. I look forward to hearing about your interesting research. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Anne, for your personal as well as your institutional support through the University of Calgary. We will now turn to the scholarly portion of this afternoon program. Alors, nous allons procéder de la façon suivante. Nous aurons 14 présentations qui seront effectuées dans l'ordre alphabétique. The format is as follows. There will be 14 speakers, each representing one of the two divisions of the Academy of Social Sciences. We intend to finish the program on time so that you may enjoy a free evening in downtown Banff or at the hotel next door. The shuttles will be departing beginning at 6:30, and the shuttles will make one stop downtown and continue to the Fairmont Hotel, where you will have 7 restaurants to choose from. I would like now invite my colleague Janine Brody, who is director of the Division of the Social Sciences, the Division 1, to introduce the first colleague this afternoon. Janine?
Thank you. Welcome. I must admit that this is my favorite part of the annual meeting of the Royal Society, and I'm completing 7 years of work on the selection committees for the English social sciences. And every year I have kind of an annual dose of inspiration and humility at the intellectual engagement and brilliant scholarship that is in fact formally recognized by election to the Royal Society of Canada. And I congratulate each and every one of you for your distinguished contributions to the Academy and to national and international debates more broadly. This year, we will welcome 13 new fellows to Academy 2 Division 1, the English Social Sciences, and 5 new fellows to Division 2, the French Social Sciences. And I think 8 are going to be speaking today to provide an overview of their programs. And what I intend to do is simply to introduce them by reading their official Royal Society citations, which will follow you uneditable for the rest of your lives. And I begin with Professor Emanuel Adler from the Department of Political Science at the University of Toronto. Emanuel Adler is one of the world's foremost scholars in international relations. He is a leader of IR's constructivist approach, which successfully challenged the field's dominant paradigms, a program builder, a dedicated teacher, and mentor. His scholarship is theoretically ambitious, empirically rigorous, intellectually pluralistic, which explains why he is one of the 3 most widely cited IR scholars in Canada. Emanuel.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I was told that I need to speak for 8 minutes. I tested it, so I think it will be around that time. But I just would like to start by thanking the Royal Society of Canada for the honor that has conferred upon me. It is a great pleasure to give this talk before you today. By the way, it's also a pleasure to be first, because afterwards I can listen to your talks and not thinking, what am I going to say? So it is always good that my name is AD. I begin by briefly describing a social constructivist approach, which applied to international relations has defined my academic career. I do this, however, not to display my academic biography, but mainly to briefly describing a book I'm now writing on a theory that I call cognitive evolution, which is, as I will show, itself evolved. So I may call this talk The Evolution of Cognitive Evolution. I stumbled into constructivism in my search for a middle ground position between, on one hand, a materialist and positivist standpoint of international relations, which take the world as it is, and on the other hand, postmodernist and post-structuralist standpoints, which take the world only as it can be imagined or talked about. Constructivism is the view that the manner in which the material world shapes and is shaped by human action and interaction depends upon dynamic and epistemic interpretations of the material world. Thus, while rocks and flowers are material facts in the world, all social facts, for example, money, are objective facts in the world only because of human agreement. Constructivism considers intersubjective knowledge to have constitutive effect on social reality and its evolution, takes change as the transformation of social practices and institutions and knowledge structures which they are made of, and replaces non-historical understanding of rational choice with the notion that rationality is sensitive and contingent to historic, social, and normative contexts. I first applied the constructivist approach to the concept of epistemic community, which my colleague Peter Haas and I developed more than 20 years ago. Epistemic communities are networks of individuals or groups with an authoritative claim to policy-relevant knowledge within their domain of expertise. The community members share knowledge about causation of social and physical phenomena and normative beliefs. I empirically applied this concept to an American epistemic community whose ideas influenced US policy, were diffused to the Soviet Union, and were embodied in a 1972 anti-ballistic missile arms control treaty, thus helping to promote superpower cooperation during the Cold War. This work already evinced an evolutionary approach, for I tried to show how epistemic communities cognitively frame novel theories as a collective conceptual interpretation of reality, help diffuse such understanding across borders, and promote their political selection until they become established as taken for granted political and strategic practices. In time, I came to realize that the epistemic foundations of international political life lie not only in ideas in people's minds, but also in social practices. Culture, I concluded, is the very performance of practices. Practices which Vincent Pouliot and I define as competent performances rest on background knowledge which embodies, enacts, and reifies all at once, and is bound upon in performances and can only be expressed as such. I realized that practices develop, diffuse, and become institutionalized in communities of practice, a concept which helped broaden the ontology of cognitive evolution. I therefore substituted the concept of epistemic community with that of community of practice. According to Etienne Wenger, communities of practice are configurations of a domain of knowledge that constitute like-mindedness, communities of people that create the social fabric of learning, and a shared practice that embodies the knowledge the community develops, shares, and maintains. Communities of practice are simultaneously material and ideational, and encompass not only the conscious and discursive dimensions and the actual doing of social change, but also the social space where structure and agency overlap and where knowledge, power, and community intersect. Wearing my community of practice glasses, I took a second look at arms control and deterrence and realized that it was neither a priori rationality nor ideas jumping from mind to mind, as it were, but doing or performing deterrence and arms control, which practically taught the superpowers how to think alike on nuclear strategy. I was now ready to embark on writing a book on cognitive evolution. Rather than relying by analogy on biological evolution, cognitive evolution theory assumes a general model of evolutionary change associated with evolutionary epistemology, which, going back to American pragmatists such as James Peirce and William James, philosophers of science such as Karl Popper and Stephen Toulmin, and psychologist Donald Campbell, suggest a unique social explanation of social orders evolution. I also introduce complexity theory concepts such as nonlinear change, emergence, and order through fluctuations to evolutionary epistemology. In a kernel, the theory of cognitive evolution says that social orders are constituted by practices which are contained and carried by communities of practice. Cognitive evolution refers to the creative variation and selective retention of social orders due to collective learning in and competition between communities of practice. Practices and the background knowledge which sustain them are the structural makeup which is passed on in replication. When preferentially selected, they are inherited to future generations of practitioners and are diffused across geographical and institutional boundaries. Communities of practice are practices vehicles, which interacting with the environment makes replication differential. Institutional organizations, and more broadly polities, are corporate practitioners. Social orders evolve in time. Three social mechanisms, endogenous learning within, competition among, and innovation of communities of practice, play a key role in the creative diffusion and selective retention of social practices. The selection and institutionalization of novel background knowledge explains the survival of expectations and dispositions in individual minds. These subjectivities then become the reasons for the actions of individuals who keep the practices and background knowledge institutionalized. I apply cognitive evolution theory to three cases, each of which illustrates and demonstrates the working of one of the mechanisms I briefly mentioned before. The evolution of Europe's post-World War II social order demonstrates mainly the endogenous evolution of communities of practice. Innovative practice of security, citizenship, regional government, etc., constitute the transnational order we know as the European or the EU today. They evolve preferentially by means of communities of practice, which transform political, economic, social, and legal environments, and also were transformed by them. In recent years, however, the EU communities of practice are experiencing heavy pressures to transform in a nationalist and a statist direction. Thus, Europe's social order may soon evolve again. The evolution of the cyberspace social order, which is my second case, pits two competing communities of practice in a political structure to determine the web's social order. And finally, the evolution of the corporation is a case of cognitive evolution, whereas economic and social innovation led to the evolution of the corporation and of corporate practices which constructed us, namely the social and economic corporate order. In conclusion, cognitive evolution theory is important because it may enable social scientists to explain transformation and stability with one combined approach which is dynamic, takes the material world and ideas in mind as social practices, and suggests evolutionary social mechanisms which are different than evolutionary mechanisms in the natural science. I hope I have succeeded to stir your intellectual curiosity. Thank you very much for listening.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.